Welcome back. This is Defender Chassis. My name's Scott. This is episode 5 of Have You Seen My Tool? This week's tool is chassis punches, or also known as radio punches. Everybody probably knows about these drill bits that they call Christmas tree bits or step drills. And they do a fine job on sheet metal. The downfall is that they're very expensive. They don't last very long, and they make one heck of a mess. If you're going to do a lot of holes, one thing that you might think about is trying to come up with a set of these chassis punches. Now, you can buy new today, and I am blessed enough to have a set of Mittler Brothers punch and flare tools. These will not only punch a hole, but they will also flare the hole after the punch. Now, you can simply reverse the bottom die and use it in this manner if all you want to do is punch the hole. But as you can see, there's a flare on this upper die, and of course the inverse on the lower, so that after you make the punch, then it will create the flare. Now, a set of these, I've got a set of 6 from, this is the smallest at 1 inch up to, I believe, 2.5 inches. And this set of tools, I believe, is going to run you in the neighborhood of $300, maybe $350, something of that nature. Now, I didn't pay that for them. I probably wouldn't have them if I had to pay that cost for them. They are nice to have, but it's very, very expensive. Another option that is not necessarily cheaper are these Greenlee punches. Greenlee is a company that sells a lot of electrical tools, and the intent of these is to punch holes in electric box. And a lot of these that you'll find will have an odd size. They'll have, you know, for instance, 1/2 inch conduit. You have to punch a 7/8 diameter hole for the conduit fitting. Now, they do make nominal sizes. For instance, this is an 1.5 inch punch. It will punch a true 1.5 inch hole. But a lot of these you'll find used are going to be with the intent of punching holes for conduit fittings, and will have an oddball size. What I would do, and what I have done, is if you look on eBay a lot of times, you can find these used, and you can find partial sets, onesie twosie kind of things. And for instance, they're also made by Greenlee, but they're older. I'm not sure what the vintage is. I got this whole set, I think, for maybe 20 or 30 bucks or something of that nature. So you had to shop around, and these weren't in the greatest shape. But the thing about them is you can take a file and you can dress the cutting edges and clean these up. And that's what I've done with this set. In fact, there were some parts and pieces that I couldn't use that were, you know, half of one punch or half of another or something of that nature. If you watch, you can find them, and then you can have a really nice tool to save you some time. Now, you're probably thinking, well, you still got to drill a hole with these, and that's true, because you have to drill a hole for the bolt to pass through, which is probably 3/8 hole. The benefit is that you won't have nearly the mess, because these create a ton of chips, especially when you start getting into holes. This is a 1.25 inch punch, so you're going to create a lot of chips trying to create that size hole, and this bit's not going to do it. So you're going to have to start off with this bit, and then you're going to have to go to another one. And then these get really expensive when you start getting into the larger size. Something to think about, something to add to your arsenal, something to make short work of something that a regular drill bit's not going to help you with. I guess another option would be hole saws, but if you've ever used hole saws to cut through sheet metal, you know that you don't really get a nice clean cut. So let's use these. Let me get a piece of scrap metal, and we'll make a couple of punches, and you can see the type of hole that these create. Now, you're limited on these to 16 gauge material. If you watch my video about retrofitting of a larger drum to my parts washer, you probably saw me use one of these to punch a hole in an 1/8 inch plate. And although it would do it, it actually damaged the threads on the bolt a little bit, and I had to chase the threads. So doing that very many times would wear the tool out prematurely. So I would limit myself to probably 16 gauge or 60,000, 63 thousandths material. Now, that shouldn't be a problem. You can do thicker than that on aluminum, obviously, because it's softer. Most floorboards, firewalls in cars are going to be in the neighborhood of 20, 30 thousandths thick material. So you're going to be well under 16 gauge material. All right, let me get set up to punch some holes, and we'll do some test punches, and I'll let you take a look at what that looks like. Okay, here we are set up. I've got a piece of plain sheet metal. Looks like it's 35 thousandths thick. This was left over from some material that was purchased to do some body work on a car. So this is representative of what you might find on an automobile. So the first thing we're going to have to do is go ahead and drill a hole 3/8 of an inch in diameter. Okay, so now we assemble the chassis punch through the hole and go ahead and run it up snug by hand. Then all we've got to do is continue to tighten this bolt to create the punch. So there you go, not too difficult at all. There's what your slug looks like. And we'll give you a little close-up of the hole. Very nice clean edges. It did draw a little bit of a burr. But hey, let's try a piece of aluminum. It looks like somebody was doing the old punch and flare here on this one. So that's an example of probably that same, well, this is a little bigger than that punch and flare I just showed you. This is what the hole would look like with the punch and flare. But let's go ahead and punch a hole in this aluminum. This is 40 thousandths thick. So this would be representative of what you'd have like if you were building a bulkhead for a drag car or something of that nature to close off the trunk, something like that. So this is, of course, going much smoother than the steel. So, how long do you think it would have taken to drill that hole with a step bit? First of all, it's an 1 3/8 hole. So you would have had a hard time finding step drill bits up to that size, and you probably would have had a couple $100 in them. And if you've got any questions, hey, leave a comment. Something I didn't show you, something you want to see, we can do a follow-up video, or we can attach it to next week's Have You Seen My Tool? So hey, listen, if you're enjoying these videos, I appreciate it if you give them a thumbs up. And if you're if you've got an account, hey, please hit subscribe. That way you'll get a notice as soon as these videos come out. And I'll see you next Sunday on Have You Seen My Tool, episode 6. Thanks for watching.